Have you ever found yourself in a situation where something seemingly trivial led to a life-changing encounter? It's fascinating how our modern dependency on technology can sometimes create the most unexpected human connections. Picture this: a phone battery slowly draining, the anxiety of being disconnected from the world, and the desperate search for a charger. We've all been there, frantically looking around, hoping someone might have that life-saving cable that matches our device. But what happens when that simple request for a charger turns into something much more meaningful? This is exactly what happened to Alex, whose ordinary evening took an extraordinary turn when a dying phone battery led to a connection that would last far longer than any charge. Alex had been at a small gathering at his friend Jamie's apartment. Nothing too special, just a casual Friday night with a few acquaintances catching up over drinks and music. As the night progressed, Alex noticed his phone battery dipping dangerously into the red zone. Now, for most of us, a dying phone might seem like a minor inconvenience, but for Alex, it was particularly problematic. He was expecting an important email about a job interview scheduled for Monday morning, and being disconnected from that communication was causing him considerable anxiety. He had meant to bring his charger, had even placed it by the door to remember it, but in his rush to arrive on time, it remained sitting on his entryway table, utterly useless to him now. The gathering was winding down, with people starting to leave in pairs or small groups, heading home or to continue their evening elsewhere. Alex began asking around if anyone had a charger compatible with his phone. Most people either had different models or needed their chargers themselves for the journey home. The situation was looking increasingly hopeless, and Alex was contemplating leaving to find an all-night cafe where he might charge his phone, even briefly. That's when he met Morgan. She wasn't part of the original group. She had arrived late as a friend of a friend, someone who knew Jamie from work and had stopped by after finishing her shift. When she overheard Alex's increasingly desperate inquiries about a charger, she approached him with a warm smile. "I might have what you need," she said, rummaging through her bag. "I carry all sorts of cables because I'm always forgetting to charge my devices." There was something immediately disarming about her. Perhaps it was the casual confidence with which she spoke, or maybe the genuine desire to help a complete stranger. Unfortunately, after searching through her collection of cables, Morgan realized she had left her compatible charger at her apartment. "I live just a few blocks away," she offered. "You're welcome to come charge your phone there if you're really in a bind." Under normal circumstances, Alex might have declined such an offer from someone he had just met, but the combination of necessity and something inexplicably trustworthy about Morgan led him to accept. Jamie, noticing their conversation, vouched for Morgan, assuring Alex she was good people before bidding them both good night. And so, with his phone now completely dead and his evening taking an unexpected detour, Alex found himself walking through the cool night air alongside a stranger who had offered to help him with a simple problem. The walk to Morgan's apartment was filled with the kind of easy conversation that sometimes happens between strangers who have no preconceptions about each other. They talked about the party, about Jamie's eclectic taste in music, and gradually moved to more personal topics: their jobs, their neighborhoods, their reasons for being in the city. Morgan worked as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm, while Alex was between jobs, having recently moved to the city in search of new opportunities. There was no pressure, no agenda, just two people filling the silence as they walked. Morgan's apartment was a small but charming one-bedroom in an old building with character. High ceilings, wooden floors that creaked slightly underfoot, and windows that didn't quite close properly, allowing the distant sounds of the city to filter in. "Make yourself at home," she said, gesturing to the couch while she went to find the charger. Alex took in his surroundings, the walls adorned with what he assumed were Morgan's own artwork, books stacked on nearly every surface, and a small collection of plants thriving on the windowsill. When Morgan returned with the charger, Alex plugged in his phone with a sense of relief. "It'll take a while to come back to life," she said. "Can I offer you something to drink while you wait? I have tea, coffee, or something stronger if you prefer." Alex opted for tea, and Morgan busied herself in the tiny kitchen. As the kettle boiled, they continued their conversation, finding surprising connections in their backgrounds and interests. They discovered they had both grown up in small towns before moving to the city, shared a love for obscure indie films, and had similar views on everything from politics to pizza toppings. The tea was served, and they settled into a comfortable conversation that flowed effortlessly from topic to topic. Alex checked his phone occasionally, but found himself increasingly less concerned about the email he had been so anxious about earlier. There was something refreshing about being present in this moment, engaged in real conversation without the constant distraction of notifications and messages. What had started as a simple quest for a charger was evolving into something neither of them had expected, a genuine connection. As hours passed, they moved from casual acquaintances to something approaching friendship. They shared stories about their families, their dreams, and their disappointments. Morgan talked about her struggle to be taken seriously as an artist while working in commercial design, while Alex confided his fears about finding meaningful work in a city where he knew almost no one. There's something uniquely intimate about late-night conversations, isn't there? When the world outside grows quiet and the usual distractions fade away, people often find themselves speaking more honestly, listening more intently. This was happening between Alex and Morgan as the night deepened around them. They had moved from sitting across from each other to sharing the couch, occasionally laughing so hard they had to catch their breath, other times falling into thoughtful silences that felt comfortable rather than awkward. At some point, Morgan suggested they watch one of the indie films they had both mentioned enjoying. "It's late anyway," she reasoned, "and your phone still needs more charging." Alex agreed, partly because he was genuinely enjoying her company, and partly because the thought of heading back to his empty apartment held little appeal compared to the warmth of this unexpected connection. As the film played, they continued to talk, often pausing to discuss a particular scene or share a thought it had triggered. Their commentary evolved into deeper conversations about life, art, and human connection. "It's strange, isn't it?" Morgan mused during a quiet moment in the film. "How we can go through our daily lives surrounded by people, but rarely making real connections. Then sometimes, completely by chance, you meet someone and there's this recognition." Alex nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. There was something about their interaction that felt unusually authentic, as if they had bypassed the usual social scripts and found something more genuine. "I think technology has made us more connected in some ways, but more isolated in others," he responded. "We're constantly communicating, but how often are we really connecting?" The irony wasn't lost on either of them, that his need for a phone charger, a product of our technology-dependent world, had led to this very human moment of connection. As the film ended, neither made a move to change the situation. Instead, they continued talking, sharing stories and perspectives, finding both common ground and interesting differences in their worldviews. Outside the windows, the city's nighttime sounds gradually shifted. The occasional passing car became more frequent, and the quality of light began to change almost imperceptibly. It wasn't until Morgan got up to make more tea that she glanced at the clock and laughed in surprise. "Do you realize we've been talking all night?" she asked, gesturing to the window where the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the sky. Alex looked at his phone, now fully charged but forgotten for hours, and was amazed to see it was nearly 6 a.m. The entire night had passed in what felt like moments. "I should probably go," he said, though without much conviction. There was a pause, a moment of uncertainty, as both considered what this night had been and what might come next. "Or," Morgan suggested, "we could have breakfast. I make pretty decent pancakes, and there's a bakery down the street that opens early if you'd prefer something else." The invitation was casual but held a certain weight, an acknowledgement that neither wanted this unexpected connection to end just yet. Alex accepted with a smile, and they moved to the kitchen where Morgan began gathering ingredients. They worked together comfortably, as if they had done this before, talking and laughing as they prepared a simple breakfast. Through the window, they watched as the sun rose fully, casting a golden light across the city that was just beginning to wake. Sitting across from each other at Morgan's small kitchen table, eating pancakes and drinking coffee, they reflected on the strange sequence of events that had brought them together. "If my phone hadn't been dying, if you hadn't been at the party, if you hadn't offered your charger," Alex mused. So many coincidences had to align. Morgan nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe that's the beauty of life, though. These random moments that turn into something meaningful. We spend so much time planning everything, trying to control outcomes, but often it's the unplanned encounters that matter most." As they finished breakfast, there was a moment of uncertainty. The night had created a bubble of intimacy, but daylight brought reality back into focus. Alex had his job interview to prepare for, and Morgan mentioned she had promised to meet a friend for lunch. The practical world was reasserting itself. Exchanging phone numbers felt almost quaint after the depth of conversation they had shared, but they did so anyway, both expressing a genuine desire to see each other again. At the door, there was a brief, awkward moment. How does one say goodbye after such an unexpected night? They settled on a hug that lingered just long enough to confirm that something significant had happened between them. As Alex finally left the apartment, stepping out into the morning sunshine, he felt different somehow. His phone was fully charged now, but he realized he had received something far more valuable than power for his device. In a world where digital connections often replace real ones, where convenience sometimes comes at the cost of depth, he had been reminded of the irreplaceable value of human connection. Walking home through streets that were gradually filling with people starting their day, Alex thought about how his simple need for a phone charger had led to something so unexpected. He had arrived at a stranger's door seeking a practical solution to a minor problem and had stayed until morning, finding something he hadn't even known he was looking for, a genuine connection in an increasingly disconnected world. Later that day, as Alex prepared for his interview, his phone buzzed with a message from Morgan. "Hope your phone stays charged today. But if it doesn't, you know where to find me." He smiled, knowing that whatever happened next, something important had shifted in his life. Sometimes the most meaningful connections begin with the simplest needs, and sometimes what starts as a request for a phone charger can lead to a night that changes everything. In our technology-driven lives, we often focus on staying connected digitally, keeping our devices charged, our social media updated, our emails answered. But perhaps what we're really searching for, beneath all that digital noise, is the kind of authentic human connection that Alex and Morgan found that night. Maybe sometimes we need our batteries to die so that something more important can come to life. The story of Alex and Morgan reminds us that in a world where we're constantly plugged in, the most powerful connections often happen when we're present with each other, sharing stories, laughter, and honest conversation. It's a reminder that behind every technological need is a human one, and sometimes when we seek to power our devices, we end up powering something much more significant, the connections that make life meaningful. So the next time your phone battery dips into the red zone and you feel that familiar panic rising, remember that sometimes a dying battery might just be the beginning of something unexpected. Sometimes you might ask for a charger and receive something far more valuable in return. And sometimes, just sometimes, you might walk into a stranger's apartment needing a phone charger and stay until morning, finding a connection that no device could ever provide. Total_char_count, 13,072.